Are you welcoming your reality or are you spending a lot of energy resisting it? Hey, I'm Rob Gibson with the Cross Minister Group, and I want to talk to you today about welcoming all that is. Some of you know in our ministry, we will say to folks, hey, all that you bring is welcome. And I want to just extrapolate that or expand that to say, what if we were to welcome all of our reality rather than spending energy resisting it? And what I mean by that is, for example, go back with me to the Last Supper and Jesus sitting at the table, breaking bread and sharing wine and washing feet. And who's at this table but Judas, who will betray him, and Peter, who will deny him 3 times? Can you just imagine that Jesus, rather than meeting those men with the love of washing their feet, breaking bread with them, and being aware of what his reality was, spending energy fighting against that, arguing with them about what they are going to do, because it is the reality that Jesus is in. We don't see that in the scriptures of Jesus doing that, though it would make perfect sense, wouldn't it, relationally, for him to be really wound up in fighting that reality. And that's maybe what some of us do oftentimes, is we just press against something that is the way it is. And maybe in our lives there's things like that. For me, I don't like uncertainty. I like to know stuff. I like to know what's coming down. I like to make plans and work according to the plan. And I'm aware that during COVID it was like, who knows? We've never navigated a pandemic before. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And there's a lot of times I was just really wound up and anxious about it. It's like, God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And the reality is, what do you do is, for me, well, we'll get on to that in a second. So it could be uncertainty for you. It could be all this whole COVID thing for you. It could be going back to the office after COVID, that it's like, oh, I don't like that. Well, that's a reality. They're asking you to come back to the office. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's a friend in a relationship who has left the relationship or has become distant. And you spend a lot of emotional energy and effort trying to figure out what's going on here, when really the friend's just portraying to you, as Henry Nouwen says, sometimes when friends move away from us, they're just showing us their limitations, has nothing to do with us. I don't know if that's the case for you or not, but maybe that's a poor illustration. I'm just thinking those things that we can sometimes, they are our reality, and we can really wind ourselves up around what are we going to do with that. Now, maybe it's in your marriage where there's not the level of intimacy and connection that you wish was there. And you spend a whole lot of energy just bemoaning what isn't there. Now, we'll come back to kind of ways to think about this. Maybe it's dollars, here you are, it's the 18th of the month or something like that. And maybe there's more month than there are dollars left. And you're just all wound up because there's just not enough money there. Or traffic, I've been my case. Been traveling a little bit recently, and sometimes traffic just comes to a dead stop on the interstate. It's like, what's going on here? Who stopped? Whatever happened? I can spend a lot of energy worrying about that rather than realizing the reality is traffic is stopped. There's no exit. There's nothing I can do about it. So here's my point is, what does it look like for us to accept or to welcome our reality versus spending a lot of energy resisting it, okay? Because I'm going to suggest to you that we have, there's a better energy to be spent if we will see our reality as it is and then determine how we're going to live in it and move forward with it, or maybe even through it. So let me just suggest to you 3 ways that we might deal with or welcome our reality rather than spending energy resisting it, right? First way is this: face it. Face your reality. Let me just use my own example. There's uncertainty in my life. I can spend a whole lot of energy trying to make sure there's no uncertainty in my life and getting all the answers that I need to have. That isn't going to happen because I can't get a crystal ball big enough to manage all those things. So facing our reality, welcome it. The reality is there's a lot uncertain for the rest of today, tomorrow, and all in the future. I can either fight that and be anxious about it, or I can welcome that that's the way it is. And it doesn't necessarily mean I have to like it, like with your, whether it's a marriage relationship, a friendship, traffic on the road. It doesn't mean when I welcome it, I go, oh, this is just great. Maybe it's somebody who's sinned against you and has hurt you. It's the reality of what you're living in. You don't have to like it, and you don't have to affirm it and say that's okay. That's not what I'm suggesting. But it is to say this is the reality that I'm living in right now, to face it for what it is. That's number one. Number two is this: press into it in the reality that you are loved. In other words, live in your present reality with love, because you are made from and for a loving relationship. God loves you, and there's nothing that can separate you from the love of God. So where you are right now is in a place of love, no matter what your circumstance, no matter the pain, the grief, the joy, the whatever's going on within you, whatever your present reality is, you are loved. And so could you press in to your present reality from a place of knowing you are loved, and press into it with love? Press into that circumstance, that relationship, whatever, with love. Yeah. So for me, that means living in a place of uncertainty, knowing that I am loved by somebody who does know the future far better than I do and loves me. Feel the shift in the energy there. I can feel that even as I say it. Rather than resisting it and being anxious about it, just know my present reality that is I'm anxiously uncertain about, that's okay, because God is certain about what's going on and what's coming, and He loves me. So I can release that a little bit. It helps me even breathe easier in this moment. Release it to Him. The third thing is, so first, face your reality. The second thing is, press into it in love. And the third thing is this: embrace the mystery of Christ's presence with you and within you, in your circumstance. And by that I mean, Paul says this in Colossians 1:27, I think it is, that the mystery of the gospel is Christ in you. He's in you, He's up to something, He's up to transformation. He's, even in the circumstances, as messy as they may be, like Jesus at that Last Supper, which was, when you think about what was going to come out of that, it's like, man, that's a mess. And yet, right in the midst of that, God was at work, working for a greater good in a messy circumstance. He was present to it, certainly present with His Son, and working through the pain, the shame, the suffering that He was going to go through for a greater good. And so what if we were to embrace the mystery of Christ's presence with us in our reality and say, yeah, I know He's up to something, and to sit with our reality rather than fighting against it or demanding it change, but to say, no, this is reality. Now, how am I going to, facing it, knowing I'm loved in it, and knowing He's present with me, how do I move forward? Now, there may be something I do about to change the circumstance, but I'm recognizing it, facing it, living in love in it, knowing He's present with me, and moving forward in my reality. Hope this is helpful and encouraging to you. Have a blessed evening.